Okay, so over the last 100 years or so, a quiet but deadly revolution has been taking place. A revolution that has toxified the norms of organisational life, but also society at large. The ethos of this revolution is that of neoliberalism, and the shock troops it has unleashed on us go by the name of new public managers, and their creed is managerialism. And this revolution has resulted in a radical power shift from the professional, the one who actually does the work, to the bureaucrat, the one who is supposed to facilitate the work. The bureaucrat, the public servant, is servant no more. You become master, dictating what the professionals to do and the way they are to do it. But bureaucracies, when they first emerged, were an expression of the values of the Enlightenment: freedom, rationality, equality. Bureaucracies acted as checks and balances to counter the arbitrary expressions of women power by church, crown, and the more privileged generally. But more recently, having donned the mantle of power, bureaucracies have betrayed values to become the hyper-rationalist, punitive instruments of coercion and control that they are today. The values of neoliberalism are those of free trade, open markets, privatization, deregulation, and a decrease in the welfare role played by the state. And all human interaction, including love and affection, is construed of as trade in the marketplace. And these individuals that inhabit this marketplace are said to be cognitive calculating machines who are constantly calculating how to maximize their self-interest. And human nature is said to be fundamentally selfish and concerned with getting the best deal possible. And if you happen not to be one of the ones who can manage to get a good deal, you can draw on the wisdom found in Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. And despite the economist Amartya Sen pointing out that Homo economicus, the purely economic man, is close to being a social moron, this amoral cognitivist psychological model continues to prevail. According to neoliberalists, when the marketplace is unregulated and left to its own devices, it is in its natural state. Competition and social Darwinist principles will ensure that only the strongest will survive. And because public service organisations rely on the state, they are by definition said to be inefficient and wasteful. Therefore, they should be privatised. And if that's not possible, then they should be run along the same lines as for-profit institutions. Well, the rationale for profit institutions is to do well, to make profit. Meanwhile, the rationale for not-for-profit institutions is mostly to do good in some way, to educate, to care, and so on. So new public managers claim that both are possible, and that managerialist principles will ensure that public services will deliver more bang for less buck. The rhetoric is one of excellence and customer choice, but the reality turns out to be entirely about profit and profiteering. Education, for example, has become just another tradable commodity. The investment bank Merrill Lynch saw the prospect of the privatization of further education as a golden investment opportunity worth several trillions of dollars. The title of the publication said it all. The book... Oops, this is not working. The Book of Knowledge, Investing in the Growing Education and Training Industry. Note the word industry. Not only was education reduced to a commodity in the marketplace, education itself was put in the service of the marketplace. This is why the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown shifted responsibility for further education from the Department of Education to the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills. Even so, neoliberalism has singularly failed to deliver on its promises that customer choice and competition would drive prices down. For example, 15 years or so ago, the full standard return fare between Totnes and London in the newly privatised railway then used to be £25. Today it is £259. The fares are about to be increased yet again by 3.2%. Meanwhile, dividends paid out to shareholders this year were 222 million, this being an increase of 21% on the previous year. And it is absolutely certain that the wages of railway workers, lucky enough not to be made redundant, will not be being increased by the self-same 3.2% because we are in the time of austerity. On the one hand, multinational neoliberalist organisations require absolute freedom for themselves in the marketplace, free of state interference, bureaucracy. But within organisations, the culture that has come to prevail is the very opposite of freedom, a culture that is highly regulated, highly controlled, and often very punitive. And this is no contradiction, because the managerialist organisation is the embodiment of Descartes' mind-body divide. The thinking mind is located in the CEO, the heroic leader. This mind instructs the body as to what it should do. A huge body like a university obviously requires a huge mind to control it, which is why the Vice-Chancellor of Exeter University receives a huge salary of £400,000 a year. The body, meanwhile, is discouraged from thinking too much, because that gets in the way of compliance. If a part of the body dares to think ethical thoughts that are critical of the institution and make those public, then it is called whistleblowing and is severely punished. In this way, ethics is reduced to compliance. In effect, the red tape that has been cut out from the outside of organisations has ended up being on the inside to entangle the workforce in so much bureaucratic procedure that it has become commonplace to hear the complaint that more time is spent doing paperwork than the actual work. So how is it that reports emanating from the Quality Care Commission and the like regularly show bodies like IAPT that they're meeting their performance targets? Well, this is made possible by virtue of the fact that what the review bodies are checking on is the paperwork, not the actual work. In this way, data about the work, so-called evidence, becomes more important than the work itself, and more energy is put into making things look good rather than actually doing good, and often enough to the detriment of doing good. The neoliberalist requirement that in order to survive the rigours of the marketplace, organisations and individuals should be lean, competitive, flexible, and so on, has resulted in little or no job security. 0-hour, short-term, fixed-term, and part-time contracts have become the norm. This, combined with the pressure of meeting unrealistic targets whilst being continually audited, ends up generating a culture of fear, insecurity, and anxiety. And this, in turn, takes a terrible toll on the employee, who habitually have to take time off due to stress. But fear not. If you succumb to despair, depression, or simple exhaustion, there are all kinds of help out there for you. You might be offered a training on how to be happy, or mindfulness, or hopefulness, or resilience, and yesterday I heard about gratefulness too. And if these are insufficient because you are suffering from a so-called mental disorder, then there is always CBT, which will cure you of your misery in 6 to 12 sessions. So I'll end this short introduction by calling on a passing comment made by the moral philosopher Raymond Geiter. And he said this about his family dog, Gypsy. He said, "We did not discipline Gypsy to make her predictable. We did it to make her trustworthy." To my mind, this word pair, predictable, trustworthy, perfectly captures the tensions that this conference will speak to. A rare example of the ethos of trust is found in the employee handbook of the multi-million American retail company called Nordstrom. And this is their employee handbook in its entirety. Use best judgment in all situations. There will be no additional rules, with some padding on either side. In contrast to this vote of trust in the Nordstrom employee, the second is an instance of the more commonplace, coercive, controlling mentality found in organisational life today. A delegate at this conference emailed me just a few weeks ago with the following. I put the conference poster in the staff kitchen, where there are other posters, adverts also displayed. Shortly afterwards it was removed, and the following email from the service manager with photo of the offending item was circulated to all staff. Dear all, this poster was found in the kitchen and was felt to be inappropriate with negative connotations about the organisation. If the staff member would like to discuss any concerns relating to the poster's subject matter with me confidentially, I'd be more than happy to do so. Posters and leaflets shared in staff areas should be professional, boundaried, and not be disrespectful to any members of the team or the organisation. So I would like to thank the service manager for two reasons. One, for giving me with such a choice morsel to start the conference off with, and secondly, for advertising this conference to all his staff.